Hi, I'm Marty McNair. I am the host of the K.O.B.Y Blueprint, Courage, Confidence, and Self-Advocacy Unleashed. Back with part 2 of our financial literacy episode. You gotta watch the first one to get the basics of financial literacy. And then in this session, we'll keep talking to Coach Sule about what to do, right, when you do get some money, how to save, and how to put this all together. So welcome back.
Hey, very glad. Happy to be back. We're talking to you guys.
For sure. This is just a conversation that, obviously we could not do in one whole episode and keep everybody's attention. So, obviously, the part 2 would be ideal. So, Coach, we covered a lot of things in regards to the basics of financial literacy in the first session, right? Where we at and what are the basics? Like, let's kind of get into, let's dive deep, into young people now, just student athletes that may have a potential NIL deal, just regular. Because one thing's for sure, if you're gonna be successful, you're gonna deal with some money. Right? You're gonna deal with money. So, what are things now that we can really focus on in regards to the basics? So, we got some student athletes, or our viewers are looking at this. What are the basics of saying, okay, I got a part-time job, or I may have NIL deal, and it may not be $1 million NIL deal or several millions, but it may be something that is an 18 or 19-year-old I can deal with. How do I make it work? What's realistic, and most importantly, how do I keep it?
Yes. So the first thing we would do once you have that money is creating a budget. That's number one. And when we talk about a budget is simply knowing the money that's coming in and the money that's going out. And so once we have a budget, then we can go in, and that helps us with the discipline, helps us stay structured and focused in terms of knowing our daily expenses, knowing, okay, hey, where my money's coming in, if I have bills, if I don't have bills, probably at a young age, you probably won't have outside of a cell phone bill or anything like that. Okay, well, what do I have to do in order to make those purchases that I want moving forward? So creating a budget is going to be step number one. Once you have that budget set, then it's time to say, okay, well, let's go out there and save or invest, right? So when we talk about savings, most of us might have a checking account, savings account. The checking account, is separate from the savings account. Obviously, the savings account is where you just want to have money kind of sitting. Checking account is probably where you're doing most of your spending, whether you have a debit card, where you're making your daily purchases. Sort of acts like cash, but on the actual card. And so once you have that set, you got to decide to yourself, do I want to keep my money in a savings account, or is there something else I could be doing better? Most of us look at a savings account as probably only earning 0.01% APY, annual percentage yield. And so that's really not allowing your money to work for itself. So what's an alternative to that? Open up a high yield savings account. If we look right now, the average high yield savings account is probably around 4%. So instead of getting 0.01% of my money, I'm actually getting 4%. So if I had $10,000 in the bank, just by sitting there, $10,000 in the bank, I can get $400 by sitting in a high yield savings account, as opposed to if I had it in a traditional savings account, I would only maybe be getting 4 cents, 40 cents on that amount of money by the end of the year. So that's what you want to do now. If you got a little bit more money, you want to start investing, learn about stocks, then you will want to open up a brokerage account. And a brokerage account is simply, you got to be 18 years old, knowing your social security, obviously having your ID, knowing all that stuff, and then creating an account. You can use Robinhood, E-Trade, just different platforms.
Even got
Cash App, there's so many,
there's
so many things that you could be doing to invest, making your money work for itself. And so at an early age, you can do that. I know a lot of us have apps, gambling apps like FanDuel, those things. But at the same time, as easy as it was to open up a FanDuel or DraftKings, you could be opening up a brokerage account at the same time and putting some money. You don't have to go all in, but understanding, hey, if you start early and stay disciplined with it, having a strategy to say, hey, look, every pay period or every time I get a little bit of money, I'm going to buy a stock in Apple, where I'm going to buy 1 share of Apple. And what that 1 share allows you to do is own a very small piece of the Apple company. So guess what? When Apple does well, you're making money. When Apple releases a new product,
Right.
you're making money.
Right.
Right. And it doesn't have to be Apple. It's
Sure.
most companies out there are publicly traded.
Right.
And so you can start investing that way.
Got it. So, and everybody, I want you to listen. Where if you're making investments, right? FanDuel, DraftKings, right? Whatever other gambling, these aren't investments. Now, and this is the interesting thing, Coach, because the main thing is, yeah, me buying a piece of Apple stock ain't as exciting as me putting a 5-leg parlay on the college games tomorrow, right? Yeah, and that's where we kind of get so absorbed in the excitement of me playing with my money, right? Yeah. Where in reality, I feel bad every time I lose. And then also, let's address the something for nothing mentality in a sense, right? Mm-hmm. Meaning, I can sit here and we see people on social media every day, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, right? YouTube, you know, and I've yet to follow anybody that I followed their betting advice on YouTube that gave me good advice. Yeah. If I could choke them all, I would, because I ain't never got a good line on a bet, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, so I can sit here and say, okay, I can bet $10, and everybody thinks that they see that guy like, oh, I can bet 20, and they won $5,000 or they won 50 grand off of $20. Yeah. Statistically,
right?
Anything beyond the 3-leg, and we're not giving gambling advice by no means, no means. But do you know statistically how hard it is to pick anything beyond a 3-leg parlay, even 2-leg parlay or 3-leg parlay? Yep.
And so, it's tough, and it's not to say, hey, you can't do those things,
right?
Right, because I'll be the first one to tell you. Sure. I put my parlays in as well. Right. But it's after I've invested, paid my bills, and after I've done everything else. It's right. We talk about paying. It's after I paid myself first. Right. I paid for my future self. Right.
Of course.
And so it's something I talk to my students all the time, and you got to understand. You talk about the excitement. And psychologically. Right, that's what gambling's supposed to do.
Exactly.
Right? The people who created the apps, who created the structure, it's there because it's making somebody else
it's getting them endorphins money. It's getting them endorphins. Them endorphins are clicking.
Exactly. And then you know, it's a saying, in psychology we call it the hedonic treadmill, and no matter what, and this is what happens to most lottery winners. You know, they say most lottery winners. End up becoming depressed after they get this
the money brings more problems.
Because it brings more problems, or the excitement dies down. And so, you know, for each one of us, we all have a baseline of happiness.
Sure.
And so, no matter how high we get up above this baseline, we're still going to come back down.
Correct.
And so, over time, you're like, okay, hey, the problems that come with it, and understanding that. So, you know, that excitement is over. So, what happens? You win. Okay. What most of us do after we win? Well, we get a little bit of money. You might buy something, pay a little something up, but then right afterwards, we want that thrill again. Yeah. So you know, we go back to the game, and now, hey, we're risking a little bit more this time.
Of course.
And so, you know, gambling, that whole playing the FanDuel. Sure. Nobody's saying that, hey, you can't do it. Right. But make sure you're being responsible and you're doing it after you pay yourself first. Sure. With investing, with paying off your debts.
Exactly.
Making sure that's at the forefront. Right. And then, hey, if you have a little bit extra on the side, you want to have a little bit of fun, hey, you got to enjoy yourself.
So you're not taking your rent money or your bill money, right? Or any of your responsibility money and say, you know, I'm short this week, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna go ahead and flip this, right? And it's all gonna come back to me.
No. That's what we mean by paying yourself first. Yep. That's what it means by, hey, being disciplined, being responsible, being financially informed, making well-informed decisions. So we can take care of those things. And you said it before, right? When we talk about investing, we're thinking long term. So that's boring. Because sometimes you know it's not as palpable. I don't see the benefits, the gains right away. Right. You know, this is something. Sometimes you should be saving just to save. You don't need a reason to save.
You don't need a reason to save.
Save for the rainy day that's going to come up. Right. So we talk about obviously the student athletes at a young age. You don't have them. The responsibility of maybe having a mortgage, maybe you may be starting off with the rent, all those things, but We talk about another thing about being financially literate is, hey, have an emergency fund.
Yep.
Having a pool of money set for 3 to 6 months into the expenses, just in case, hey, when you do start working, something, you come across a pitfall, you get into a jam, or you hit a whammy with a car breakdown, something as simple that you have some residual on the side that you can easily go to and still be able to maintain your daily structure.
So good point, because I remember reading years ago where they were saying it was such a high percentage of Americans that weren't prepared for a $300 emergency.
Yep.
$300.
$300. Yep. And
it was like
most Americans might not even have $1,000 right now
in savings.
In a savings account.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. That's the reality.
That's the reality.
That's the reality of that's just the reality of life. So when you talk about investing wisely or planning for the future, really it may be more. And back to the phrase I wanted to address the phrase that you talked. It was called what is it called? So
hedonic treadmill.
Hedonic treadmill, right? Yep. And let me break that down. I'm gonna give you an old school, Uncle Marty has some old school, phrase. A hedonic treadmill, we say it's not the trap to kill the mouse, it's his love for the cheese.
Yeah.
So
my old football coach used to say, never bite the cheese.
It's not the trap to kill the mouse, it's his love for the cheese.
Yep.
Because even when you look at gambling and all that, man, it ain't even about the win. Yeah. It's about everything that comes along with that, man. And it's the what do you call it? The journey.
The journey.
It's the journey.
It's the journey.
And the emotions that go with that, and and it's like, you'll put a bet in and you'll keep looking at the numbers and you'll look at it, say you bet that hey, Lamar Jackson is going to throw 250 yards when they play this weekend, and you looking and you so emotional where it's like, dang, it's the halftime. He only halfway there. Wow, it's the third quarter. Wow, he only 75% there. Man, this ain't gonna happen. And then that whole heartbeat and pitter patter, and that's really the thrill and excitement of this. You don't get that from Apple.
And the thing that's happening with the young generation too, and everybody, I shouldn't even say young student athletes or the younger generation, this idea of FOMO, fear of missing out, and then obviously FOMO. Now YOLO, you only live once.
Right.
And so as a result of that mindset, and we're circling back to the whole discipline, you start to make decisions that's a little bit out of character because, hey, I don't want to miss out on the opportunity.
Right.
And that impacts investing too. Yeah. We can make some bad investment decisions because of the fear of missing out on the next Apple or the next Google. We want to hit it big. Right. So that leads us to making rash decisions in terms of how we spend our money. And then the YOLO mindset. Right. And every once in a while, it is good to have that mindset. You still want to enjoy your life. You guys work hard, you deserve it, but you got to do it in moderation. And so the self-discipline is where it's going to help you, make those well-informed decisions. So you don't put yourself in a jam, and then financially, you don't put yourself in a bind where you overspending because you're trying to keep up. They used to say the Joneses, now it's keeping up with the Kardashians. The young people know the Kardashians.
Got it. Wow. That's deep, because even when you talk about that MoFo, is it MoFo?
FOMO. Fear missing out.
MoFo. It's not MoFo. It's not that MoFo. It's FOMO.
Fear missing out.
Got it.
Because you talked about it, right?
Yeah,
making some purchases.
Absolutely.
Man, hey, that's the newest thing in town. Poor investment.
Yeah.
Somebody come to you off the street. Hey, man, look, you can put your money in there.
Yeah,
you should do this. You should do that. And you got to understand, you're not gonna catch every single hit. Every single big investment. You're gonna miss out on some stuff. And that's okay. There gonna be more opportunities to come. But you understand when it do come,
you want to be ready.
You got to be ready. So how do you get ready? You got to give yourself the knowledge and tools.
To you got to be educated. Absolutely right. FOMO, not MoFo. Right. So even when we talk about everything that we've covered in session 1, episode 1, now we're talking about money, right? Now, what about taxes? Because guess what? Especially with this whole NIL thing right now, and NIL deals are coming earlier and earlier, and somebody may have the potential where their whole world your world will change if you got some NIL money at a young age. But you can have 1 or 2 good games and your stock went through the roof. You know what I mean? From one, I've seen it with the kid out of what was the kid? The freshman out of where's that at? See, the kid, he had a great game, and he went from this amount to 1.5 million.
Was it football?
Football.
Football. Was it the kid from Alabama or Colorado?
Ryan Williams.
Alabama?
Yeah, Ryan Williams.
Yeah.
Ryan Williams, Alabama. Yeah, the kid from Alabama.
And this kid is what, 18, 19?
18, 19.
Yeah. He's 17. Yeah, he was 17.
17.
Right.
17.
So 17.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully his parents have a significant influence on his financial decisions, right?
Yep.
But still, I got a nephew that goes to Syracuse, right? And he was NIL deal. And one of the first things I had to tell him was like, that dollar ain't a dollar. So if that $100 you got, and I'm just keeping it very, very simplistic, that $100 ain't $100.
Nope.
Break that down for us, please.
Yeah, so a couple things too. I mean, I know we talk about taxes, but two reasons why that $100 ain't $100. And even, let's say it is $100 cash right now. Let's say nobody's giving out cash, but let's say you're getting cash.
Right.
$100 today won't be worth $100 tomorrow or next year or the year after. Reason why is a thing called inflation. So with inflation, the price of goods rises. So yeah, I mean, we can go back. You talk about like, okay, $100. What can $100 get you now?
Not too far.
Well, I mean, name something.
Some dinner, a movie, maybe a pair of shoes.
Okay.
Right.
Let's talk. So let's talk about the pair of shoes.
Sure.
Okay. So $100 for Jordans don't cost $100 right now. They gotta go. We gotta go something a little lower. So maybe a pair of Nikes, $100. Okay, all right. Well, down the road, that same pair of shoe, right? The people at Nike might say, "Oh, well, we can get a little bit more money for this." So what are they gonna do? Raise their prices.
Correct.
So now you need $100 and some change to make the purchase.
Right.
That happens with everything. It would be like equivalent to back in the day. You took $1, you went to your local market.
That wasn't my day.
You could probably get a couple bag of chips. And
20 pieces of penny candy. Right.
Now that can't even get you a Snicker bar.
No. And a bottle of water.
And if you want a bag to put it in, that's going to cost you an additional 5 cents.
Right. Absolutely.
So that's inflation. Over time, things going to go up.
Right.
So by having your money in a savings account, you're actually losing money because you're fighting off a thing called inflation.
Sure.
And so that's why we want to be investing, so your money can make money and working for you, and then obviously you can beat the rate of inflation. Right. That might be a financial term. If you ever turn to CNBC, Squawk Box, they always talk about inflation.
Got it.
Now with taxes, the reason why that $100 isn't worth nothing because in the U.S. we have a marginal tax rate bracket, and that's kind of what we function on. So if you just look, they raised, they changed the tax bracket code for 2025, and so depending on your level of income will determine what tax bracket you are in. So for somebody who's getting a nest egg or a high income, you're gonna be at the highest of high tax brackets. And what you gotta understand is that tax bracket is set at the federal rate. So you're paying taxes at the state level
and the federal level.
If your state has state income taxes, one thing you wanna make sure you research, you're paying taxes on the state level and at the federal level. And what are your taxes paying for? You gotta understand your taxes is how the U.S. Congress functions, how the U.S. society works, that budget. We're basically funding with tax dollars the U.S. budget. That's how they're paying for Social Security, how they're paying for public housing, education, transportation, those sorts of things, and the military and war and all those things. So that's your price for living in this country. Now, what do you get in return? Freedom, liberty, and justice. So taxes is just a part of your day-to-day operation. So anytime you're getting any type of money, understand whether you see the taxes or not, Uncle Sam's coming to collect those taxes.
Right.
So either, if you're self-employed, you're getting your money first. If you report it, you're gonna have to do a breakdown, file your taxes at the end of the year that way. And if you're getting a paycheck through a company, payroll will deduct those taxes for you. So if you're at the highest earner, you can expect to really be somewhere between 40 to 50%. So that $100.
So wait up. You know what? Let's go back. Let's make it a little bit more interesting, right? That $1 million is not $1 million.
Not $1 million.
That $1 million is going to be what, about 480?
You can look at my check. That $1,000 I get ain't even $1,000.
See my point? Right. Exactly.
You know, right. So when I make my budget, and this is what you got to understand, two things in this country. You got gross pay and net pay.
Yep.
Gross pay is what they say you're going to make when you first take the job.
Right.
And you say, hey, look, I signed up. Hey, we're going to give you $60,000 a year. Okay, that's gross.
Right.
All right. Am I seeing 60? No. Nah. I'm only seeing what the net shows, and that's after the taxes and any other deductions I got in terms of healthcare, those sorts of things. So some of the young people who probably got some checks, you probably worked a summer camp and said, "Whoa, what
was FICA?"
Yeah, what's FICA?
Yeah,
what's that?
Who's this?
Where's that? Yeah, well, you're paying for Medicaid for the old people and their Social Security. And then hopefully one day in return, the younger generation will be paying for your FICA, your Social Security and taxes.
Good point. Good point.
That's just how the U.S. society works, the economy, and that's how, that's what the sole intent for taxes are.
Got it. So the goal here is really to educate, right?
Yep.
Now, if a student athlete's family or anybody that's listening's family isn't having these types of conversations, right?
Yep.
What's the reality of, and we know the reality because a lot of times, I didn't have a financial conversation, as a young person. My parents didn't, really have that conversation with me. And I can imagine, my generation, it probably wasn't a lot, especially depending on, where you grew up at, whatever the case may be.
Well, lack of trust, right?
Sure.
Obviously, given the times,
Yep.
Lack of trust in the financial institutions around.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, things that are easily afforded to us now in terms of loans and borrowing money from the banks weren't even an option.
Correct.
Back in the day, your parents probably couldn't walk into the bank and say, hey, I want to purchase this nice car. Give me a $100,000 loan.
Right.
Or I want to purchase this nice home.
Right.
Give me a $400,000 mortgage. They probably would laugh at him and say, "We're not giving you that, Jack. No, we don't trust that you're going to even pay us back.
Right.
So why were you even taking that risk?
Yeah, of course.
So it wasn't even an option.
Sure.
Now obviously things have changed. Right. You can easily probably get access now. They made it a little bit tougher, right? You got to show source of income. You got to actually have a little bit of financing to qualify for, higher principal loans and those sorts of things. But things are obviously afforded to us now, and so what does that lead itself to? A mountain of debt, early trap, right? Young age, you taking on more than you can actually handle, borrowing more money than you actually can afford. And so just because the bank say, hey, look, we're gonna give it to you, doesn't mean you need to be taking out that loan. So if I walk into the bank, we probably would qualify for a nice home, a nice car. But in my mind, I'm like, whoa, I got the kids, I got other things. Can I really afford this? The bank will say, yeah, you can afford this. Why wouldn't they? We're gonna give you this money. But in the meantime, you gotta have the discipline and knowledge to be like, well, can I really, pay this off? What's my monthly payments? Man, that's a lot. What if something were to happen? Can I still afford this? And so you got to think about that. The bank's in to make money for themselves. The salesmen that you go to see, they're in to make money for yourself. Do your research, right? Try to find that low interest rate if you can.
Got it. Great, excellent piece of advice. So when you look at, even when we look at, so I'm gonna give a prime example. I've always been in sales.
Yeah.
So I was in the car business for years.
Okay,
right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I think you'd be a good salesman too.
Yeah, man. And what I learned was, and I remember going to, I used to sell Nissans. Right?
Okay, yeah.
And I sold Nissans, Acura, BMW. I sold quite a few products. And I thought that going through it, like, oh man, you get to Lexus or you get to, these German engineered vehicles. I didn't hit the car sales lottery. But in reality, you got a different type of buyer, right?
Yeah.
So when somebody would come in, I learned the difference between an uneducated consumer versus an educated consumer. An educated consumer, I could already tell when you pulled up on a lot and where you got your last car from, like, oh boy, this is your financial situation because you probably got a super high interest rate. You upside down in the vehicle where you owe more than what the vehicle is worth, right? And then I start looking at educated consumers where they would come in, they did all their research prior to, right? So they do all of it. They know what their interest rate, they know what their credit score is, they know what their interest rate is, they know what the car is selling for, what you can take off of it, right? And I've had many people sit at my desk and say, I got somebody, this dealership over here, same product, different brand, different dealer, but they'll give me X amount of dollars off of it, right? And even though they could be 100 miles away, I will drive that 100 miles because again, knowing the value of you as a consumer, right? And what your worth is, and most importantly, what you can afford, what's realistic, right? They came in with a different type of negotiation versus an uneducated consumer. All they was concerned was what everybody back in the neighborhood is going to think when they see them pull up. They ain't interested in the car note. No, they ain't interested in the monthly note because again, most of these people overextend themselves in those situations.
And you brought up a good point, and I think that's the key. If there's anything I can leave you with is, the key to getting rich and what rich people do in general is find a true value.
Are we talking about rich people or wealthy people?
Well, I would just say two different terms. That's a good. So yeah, I'll go back to rich versus wealthy.
Right.
But finding the true value of something and finding a way to pay a lot less for it.
Yep.
If you have that mindset.
Oh boy, wow.
So finding the true value, finding the true value of something and finding a way to pay less for it.
Got it.
Will keep you in the green.
Yep.
Over time.
Wow.
Because what you say as it relates to purchasing that car, you're willing to go 100 miles because you know the value of it. And if you found a value that's a lot cheaper, hey, what's the trade-off there?
Right.
I can do this. I can make this because it's a lot less than, what is value at.
Absolutely.
I'm not overextending myself. I'm not overpaying.
Right.
And now you have that mindset as it relates to home, cars, clothes.
Yeah.
You're gonna be in the green a lot more than you are in the red.
Excellent analogy. Excellent advice.
Yeah.
But I think what's significant about that also is you don't have an emotional discipline, right? Or having the discipline to say, you know what? Because even as men, we do that. My wife is a coupon shopper. I ain't got no time to cut no coupons out. If I see it, I want it. If I got it, and again, has that hurt me along the way? Versus having a level of patience to say, you know what? Let me see where I can get the best deal. Guess what? I don't have to have it right now, right? I don't have to drive this off the lot today. You know what? Let me do some research on this.
I can go
to the point where I can go pre-owned or whatever the case may be. Certified pre-owned, right? I can go a couple different options. But again, let me do my research, right? And I think that even with the power of visualization, right, or manifestation, to say, you know what, this is a vehicle. I know my first sports car I wanted, right? I didn't go just pull up on the lot and say, give me that one. I did the research on it. I saw what they cost. I mean, I test drove it. So I was manifesting the whole time in a sense, right? So it's like, man, having that level of patience to say, you know what, I want this thing. Let me be very mindful. But before we go, let's address the whole rich versus wealthy mentality, right? Because it's definitely a difference. It's definitely a difference. We see. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I tell my students all the time, rich is what you see, wealthy is what you don't see.
Correct.
And so wealth takes time to accumulate. Generational wealth. I don't know anything about your finances. You can have access to something be sitting on a plot of land somewhere else.
Of course.
I don't see that. So I don't know if you're wealthy or not.
Right.
I will make a judgment based on what car you got and all those things.
Of course.
And there's a way you can leverage that for your financial gains. But in terms of wealthy, it's what you don't see. So you don't see the money I got sitting in my bank account.
Correct. Right.
That's compounding over time.
Sure.
You don't see the 529 plans I got set up for my little kids.
Exactly.
That's got a lot of income being invested in the standard index fund.
Correct.
Right? What you see? You see me with high socks, high water khakis, then you make a judgment based off of that.
Of course.
But the wealth part, that's what I'm striving for. Generational wealth. So that's going to take discipline. Will I get to enjoy it? Some of it, but the fruits of my labor will hopefully be passed on for generations to come. Not only just in terms of resources and money, but knowledge. Because in this country, generational wealth only lasts about 3 generations. Because we could pass down money, but are we passing down the knowledge and skills and the discipline from generation to generation to be able to obtain that wealth?
So if I and I, you know, we both kind of getting our information from the same book, but even for you and I to say, you know, hey, you know what, I'm going to make a $5,000 investment and I'm going to let it ride for the next 100 years, right?
Yep.
I ain't going to touch it. I'm put it under a tree and just let it go to work. How much money would that be? Not like I say for us, we probably won't even be here, but again, for our grandkids, our kids' kids, or our kids.
Yeah, but I mean, it can be millions. A $10,000 investment a day, letting it sit would be millions. And the good thing about it in this country, and this is how the wealthy stays wealthy, if you pass that on, you don't have to pay capital gains tax on it. Right. So let's say I did create an investment right now, and when I passed away, it was $20 million in the bank.
Right.
For anybody else, if I got that $20 million, we're gonna pay that 40%, 50% on that $20 million gain.
Sure.
For someone else, if they're passing on generation without, actually withdrawing the funds, and I'm passing for one generation, I'll never have to pay taxes on that money.
Wow. Man, it's always, you know, the interesting thing, I think financially, we're always learning. We're always learning.
Always.
So, Coach, in conclusion, man,
Yes.
you gave us a ton of good information.
Yep.
I think that anybody watching episode 1 and episode 2 will be more financially literate than they were prior to if you didn't know anything about this. What would be a good resource as far as like a good book to read or something like that? One or two books or whatever.
Yeah. So you can always read Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. And then there's another book, I forget the author, look it up, but The Millionaire Next Door. The Millionaire Next Door.
Yeah. Got it. That's on my next. That's on my next list. Yeah. 3 things that you would give student athletes, our viewers watching this, about financial literacy.
Yep. Number 1, budget. Okay. Number 2, invest. And then number 3, take advantage of your time.
Got it.
Time is valuable, is a resource. And, in terms of us getting older and trying to achieve financial freedom, why are we doing all this? Because on the back end, it can give us more time.
Got it.
Okay, because time is limited, but when we say time, your time.
Sure.
Time to, when you invest, obviously, it's going to take less time for you to try to reach that money, that financial goal. So by you investing, what does that do? Hopefully it'll shave off some of you, give you more time to do other things that you can do to enjoy your life.
Got it. So if we need to get in touch with you social media wise, where you at on social media?
Yeah, most of my stuff is through coaching. Always email. You can follow me at MCD Coach Sule, Sule 53, something. Just look me up. I'm on social.
Got it. Way to go. So K.O.B.Y leaders, this is Uncle Marty. We're signing out. Always remember, K.O.B.Y, keep on believing in yourself, and we will see you on the next episode. Keep being great, keep being smart, and keep being special. See you next time.